you're either going to hear the beginning of the Elle Duncan show and think, wow, this girl's been traveling and she lost her voice, or you're going to think, this podcast has become a bit of a sex phone operator line. Let's go. Hey, welcome to the Elle Duncan Show. I am a horse, Elle Duncan. I feel like I'm doing it. I'm not gonna lie, Gary. It's very difficult as a broadcaster to lose your voice, clearly. It's
Sure.
like
We
sort of
need that.
integral to the job. Yeah.
Yep.
But for someone that, machinates between sounding like a chihuahua and Minnie Mouse at times, I kind of like when I lose my voice a little bit. I think it grounds me. I think it's sexy. It's a little gravelly. I'm kind
Yeah,
of into it. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm hitting on myself.
definitely. No, in an unrelated note, would you mind actually just doing my voicemail greeting? No big deal, but just go ahead. Just like, hey, you reached
Yeah, I
Gary.
got you.
What's
Hi.
up, Elle? You're back.
Hi.
A
Yeah.
history-making weekend in
Hmm.
Iowa. I mean, you were there. You basically set the table for all of us. Caitlin Clark was 18 points away. She achieved the D1 scoring record in the most unlike Caitlin Clark way possible at the free
Yeah.
throw line,
Yeah.
like not a logo three, which her coach was like, I'm actually glad she didn't get the record by shooting a logo three. But you were there, you set the table. The stars were out, they were lined up outside of the arena,
Hmm.
ready to go. What was that scene like?
So first of all, let me just say this. I went to Iowa last year for game day. It was the littest environment like that I've ever seen. And then it culminated in maybe one of Caitlin Clark's best moments when she hits that buzzer beater against Indiana to walk it off. Everybody goes crazy. She's running through the crowd. Like I was standing right there, mouth agape. So it was really cool. I wanted to go back. Like the only thing on earth that could get a black girl from the South to want to go to Iowa in the winter is Caitlin Clark. But I was into it. We were rewarded with 70-degree weather, by the way. Global warming, thank you. Um, and it was awesome. I mean, first of all, yes, we knew going in that we were going to have this great surprise for Caitlin. She always has said that she was inspired because she was a huge Minnesota Lynx fan growing up by Maya Moore. Like that was her idol. And for those of you that are a little bit more casual listeners, here's what you need to know about Maya Moore if you don't already. She's a two-time national champion at UConn, four-time WNBA champion with the Minnesota Lynx, and in the prime of her career. It would essentially be like LeBron 10 years ago, although he's kind of always still in his prime.
Yeah.
10 years ago, saying, I'm done. Like I'm gonna leave the sport because she had a greater purpose and mission. She wanted to get this man out of prison who was wrongfully in prison. Come to find out they're also in love. She
Mm,
successfully is on the team that gets him out. They get married. They have a son. They live in Georgia. Maya, even when she was a huge, mega generational star on the basketball court, has always kind of kept her circle tight and not really liked to sort of be the spectacle, be in front of the camera. It's not really her thing. She's pretty low key. Maya doesn't come out often, okay? Like almost never. In fact, there was some tweets that said maybe the greatest accomplishment Caitlin Clark has had in her career is getting Maya Moore out of the house, to which Maya laughed and totally agreed. So we knew going in we were going to be able to introduce them. They're both representatives of State Farm. They both work with them as endorsements. So State Farm makes this happen, which was so cool. State Farm is our title sponsor for game day. It was just all coming together. But again, like on game days, right? Like these
mm.
players have routines and superstitions and schedules that they follow and they get game ready. And so we were able to pull Caitlin out of her routine. She doesn't typically do media before the game, but we were able to pull her out and have this moment that happened. And it was so amazing. I think, we have the sound for you, but if you're only listening, I want you to imagine what you know about Caitlin Clark, right, Gare Bear? Like cool,
Mhm.
calm, collected, ice water in the veins. She was geeking out. So when you hear this, just imagine Caitlin with the largest smile on her face, geeking out, fangirling, screaming. Like it was everything and more when she got to meet Maya Moore. Listen. We wanted to make your dream come true. You've made so many dreams come true. State Farm knew it had been some time since you'd seen Maya, and like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Maya Moore is there.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
I feel like I'm fangirling so hard. Oh my God. Thanks for being here.
Hey, this is special.
Oh my God.
How does it feel to have?
I still feel like I was this tall and freaking out, and I ran across the court, gave you a hug. I know. Now I'm like taller than you. Oh my gosh.
Maya, how does it feel that the best player in the women's game was inspired by you?
Oh man, it's a full circle moment. I remember being 10-year-old Maya going up, hugging, Cynthia Cooper or one of the legends. And just to see that we're still continuing to be able to be connected, to be inspired by each other, to be, family, right? I love the connection.
All I ever wanted to do was meet her. I didn't have a phone. My dad didn't have his phone, so I just ran over. It's like, can you sign my shirt? Signed my shirt, gave her a hug, ran away. It's like the most vivid memory I have of like women's basketball growing up. And like, honestly, like I still tell everybody that story because it meant so much to me. It's like so cool.
And I love the full circle of it all. Maya talked to me afterwards, and even in that clip there, about how, like, for Caitlin was that 10-year-old girl who just wanted a hug from Maya Moore at the game, and still talks about her dad, like, not having the cell phone. I talked to Caitlin's dad afterwards. He was like, I really wish I could go back in time and get that cell phone. She brings it up all the time, how I didn't have my cell phone. I feel like it's like the one thing I failed her at as a dad. But Maya talked about how she went to camps, and it was the Cynthia Coopers of the world that she looked up to, that she idolized, that she wanted a hug from, that she wanted attention to. And I don't know, it gives me the warm and fuzzies, Gary, thinking about all of the girls that Caitlin Clark hugged or spent time with or met or signed an autograph for, that are going to be inspired to be like her, that I could potentially be interviewing in 10 years from now if I'm lucky enough to still do game day. And I think that's what's so special about the sport, is connecting each other, connecting these women, and Caitlin being able to have been so generational and transformational and have been able to cross over so well, that she has been able to highlight some of the contributors before the sport was super popular. And we keep talking about Lynette Woodard, who was the actual highest score in history, but she was in the AIAW before the NCAA let women play basketball, before it was sanctioned. So her points don't count. And the Iowa head coach, Lisa Bluter, said when Caitlin passed Lynette Woodard a couple of days ago, Caitlin has finally beat the real record. No disrespect to Kelsey Plum, but it was Lynette's record, and it's unfair that just because they didn't sanction women's sports back then, we just don't worry about her contributions. And it was so cool, Gary. They brought Lynette Woodard to Iowa, and she's standing on that court and she's receiving her flowers, and everyone's just cheering for her and screaming for her. And it was just so awesome to see like Maya there. We pulled her out to have a chance to talk to Maya about like the evolution of the women's game and the growth, and about Caitlin. I don't know. It just was like, it was awesome. It was awesome.
Meanwhile, what the hell was Travis Scott doing there? I was watching the clip and I'm like, oh, look, Elle Duncan is the meat between this Caitlin Clark and Maya Moore sandwich right now. Just sort of like, you're going to be in these clips for forever going forward, which is
yeah.
And then also, because Maya Moore, about our age, I'm pretty sure, and Caitlin Clark, obviously a senior in college, and the way that the scoring happens in the women's game, it's really not outside the realm of possibility that legitimately in a decade or a dozen years, maybe sooner, I don't know, you're back in sort of that same position. Maybe Caitlin Clark is done playing basketball in 2 decades and she joins you on the set. We're still young enough that we'll still be kicking around doing this damn thing, and then you can just relive it again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it would be pretty transformational to be able to, I mean, honestly, like to your point, you say like these records are made to be broken and all of those things. And it seems her passing Pistol Pete, which was a record that no one thought, anyone would ever pass, let alone a woman, is totally feasible. I mean, when you look at the women's game, like, here's what I want you guys to know. Don't be sad about Caitlin moving on. Obviously, you'll get to watch her in the WNBA. But Juju Watkins is nasty, y'all, and USC. And Hannah Hidalgo is nasty. They're number 2 and number 3 in the country in scoring too. Like, they will be coming for those records. They are highlight worthy. I think that's the most important thing, is that if Caitlin, and I think that there's a lot of back and forth that happens on social, Gary, about like, well, are we only paying attention to Caitlin because, she's mainstream, because she's a white girl that's doing this? And no. And I feel like however you bring people to the sport, it doesn't matter. It's the
Mhm.
same idea as like people getting mad that Taylor Swift was permeating football. If it meant that you could connect with your daughters, if it meant that it brought them to football where maybe they'll enjoy the sport and stay, it doesn't matter why or how they came. And
Yeah.
what I hope is that people understand that this goes beyond. Holly Rose said it at Iowa in the middle of the court during one of the quarter breaks to the crowd. And I was so glad. She said, the real test, as this is standing room only, sellout, is will you all be here next year when Caitlin's not? Because that means that she did her job and we've done our job in appropriately growing the game. It can't just be one person. She's not just the one phenom spectacle. It's really about opening up and realizing how important this sport is. And so when there was some chatter on Twitter yesterday about Travis Scott coming, it's like, oh, he's not a real women's basketball fan. He's a Caitlin Clark fan, which means by proxy, he's a women's basketball fan, right? And that's apparently what he is. Apparently, like him and Caitlin are like cool. He loves her. He even told Holly Rowe, I like Gabby Marshall too, who is the other sharpshooter on Iowa. He stood the whole time, Gary. He stood the entire time. I was like, whoever is sitting behind Travis Scott, of course, he was on the court. Whoever's sitting behind him is mad because he didn't sit the
Who's
entire
this guy?
game. They're like, who is this man? Who is this one black man in all of Iowa?
Yeah.
Sorry, there was two. Jake from State Farm was there as well.
Jake from State Farm was there. He was confirmed there.
He was like, who is this other second black man that's here in Iowa? No, but it was awesome. He was super into it. But yeah, I going back to the logo 3 that didn't happen to break the record. I had
Yeah.
my camera out. She's sitting at 14 points. I'm like, okay, next time it's an Iowa possession, I'm just going to get my camera out every single time. She has it. She gets ready. She pulls up. We're like, everything's going to go crazy. It's so storybook. And then what happens? It clanks. And it's funny because despite that that very questionable technical foul, it was not. I'm sorry. Cody McMahon didn't do anything, whatever. You could see her in the arena. She was mouthing to her teammate, damn, I wanted that 3. I was like,
Yeah.
I
Oh,
know that she
facts.
did. So
Did
for
they
her
have
to
a
get it
countdown?
they didn't have
Did
a
they
countdown
have they
going.
didn't have a countdown on the
No,
jumbotron? Because
no,
LeBron at Staples Center, they had the countdown
yeah,
going when he was 9, when he was 7, when he was
yeah,
4.
uh-uh.
Nothing.
No countdown clock.
Y'all just had to keep track in your head.
Well, they've got all the points like up on a board.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
just there
yeah,
was not a
yeah.
specific Caitlin tracker. So, you could look
Oh,
up and see she's sitting at 14
interesting.
points. Yeah.
Okay.
It has both
Yeah,
teams and their
yeah.
numbers and how many points they've got in the game and rebounds and assists. So that was a little bit anticlimactic. But I think that, as Caitlin said, like records aside, cool to pass it, not break it. We learned there's a distinction there. You can't break someone's record if you can't actually be in the same record books with them. And Caitlin will never be in the men's record book. So she passed Pistol Pete. She did
It's
not
interesting.
break his record. Yeah, that's an interesting little distinction that we
A
have
lot
to
of
make.
details.
Little
I'm
minute
gonna keep I'm
details.
gonna keep saying break.
Yeah,
I'm just because I'm already programmed to say break.
break.
Okay, so here's this thing. Last regular season home game for her. Don't you think it's kind of maybe like, oh, the stars are aligning because she passes Pistol Pete,
Yeah.
LSU legend, right? And
Hmm.
now the
Hmm.
tournament comes. She's obviously a top 2 seed in the Big Ten. Her and Iowa State. This is sort of, we need to now exact revenge against LSU to put a bow on this season. So you pass Pistol Pete, who of course is of LSU fame, and then you get the rematch with LSU potentially for the national championship, and that would be the storybook ending. Has that chatter started now?
So I think that like most people that are inside basketball would tell you they have not for most of the year felt like Iowa was a Final Four team.
Yeah.
But what we witnessed is simply because of the supporting cast. Like it's truly, she's shooting 36, but she's like accounts for 36% of their
Mhm.
offense. That is not typically a blueprint for success. And so it really has been about what the supporting cast can do. Ohio State is the number 2 team in the country with one of the nastiest defenses in the country. And we just saw Iowa take it to them because the supporting cast was phenomenal. I just mentioned her. Gabby Marshall played lights out. Hannah Stolke played lights out. If they can play like they did last on Sunday, they can be a Final Four team. The
Yeah.
question is they have not done that with as much consistency. So on the surface, the peripheral fans who are like, it's Caitlin Clark and she was a Final Four team a year ago. They lost someone named Monica Zanano. They lost McKenna Warnock. Those were two really integral pieces to that run. So again, can they make a run if they played like they did yesterday? Hell yeah, they can. But they really are going to have to play like they did yesterday. Now they're on the 2 line right now. They're the number 6 team in the country. They're a 2 seed as of now. As of now, if it stayed that way, they would be in the same bracket as South Carolina, which would be
Oof.
brutal. Now it would be South Carolina trying to exact revenge
Oof.
for based on what happened last year.
Yeah.
South Carolina has lost 1 game in over 720 days. 1 in
Yeah.
720 days. Like they are so nasty. I think at this point it's South Carolina versus the field. But it would be amazing. Either way, you're gonna have some revenge element
Yeah.
to the tournament. And I'm super pumped about that. I also have to tell you, I met Jake from State Farm. Okay.
Yeah. Is he tall in
And
person?
no, he's not tall.
He's a little guy.
Super nice guy. He's not little. He's just he's
Oh,
like
okay.
normal. He's like buff though.
Yeah.
Like dude's got some
Hey, well,
muscles.
listen. Listen, man. State Farm needs insurance on their insurance spokesman, so they're like, "Yo, but you got to keep it high. You got to keep it tight, bro."
Yeah, exactly. Got to keep it tight. But here's the thing: it's like I imagine what it would be like meeting Flo from Progressive. It's like, hey, Flo, even though I know that's not your fucking name. So
Correct.
I meet him. He walks into like our area where we're all our green room, and I'm like, oh, Jake from State Farm, and immediately I was like, dude, what's your actual
Yeah,
name? He's
no
like, I'm
doubt.
Kevin. He's like, I'm Kevin. I was like, oh, what's up, Kevin? So I'm talking to Kevin. Kevin's parents are there because Kevin's parents. His dad went to Iowa. He's got his like jacket on. He's an
Oh, for
alpha. It's
real?
like, yeah, it was so great. Like they were from the Iowa area. It's great. They live in Chicago. So we're talking, and I'm like, you know what, Kevin? Like we're friends now. The problem is, then I go to do the broadcast, and I'm like, Maya Moore. Oh, and she's sitting with my guy, Jake from State Farm.
Damn, you were about to give out his
I was
government.
about to
You're
out
about
him
to
as
give
a
out the
Kevin,
government.
bruh. I was about to out him as a Kevin.
All of a sudden, State Farm just parachutes in. Sponsorship done, dude. We're gone. Hey, yo, he was rocking a Kristen Juszczyk piece too,
He
with
was,
the
yeah.
with the vest and whatnot. My boy was off the clock almost because he was rocking black and yellow.
Yeah, he was. He was
He
rocking
got
black and yellow. They tweeted that he changed out of his formal red so that he could. I feel like maybe he has the best job in the world. Like
yes,
I think, dude, he literally just and like people love him. They showed him on camera and the crowd went nuts. It's like if Jake from State Farm shows up, it like legitimizes how big and important your event is. This guy just gets to go around. People love him everywhere he goes. He's like on the t-shirt cannon. He's just taking pictures. He's getting dapped up by Travis Scott. And all he has to do is literally just like go around and be himself. It is such a fire job.
I'm telling you right now, we have cool jobs, but the best gig to get point blank period is to be the spokesperson, the face of any particular franchise. You mentioned Flo from Progressive, the AT&T girl as well, Jake from State Farm, like these people who are attached and the lead spokes person for these brands. That's the gig to get.
Oh
That's
yeah.
it. Couple
Yeah.
commercial shoots with some A-listers every year. You got to pop out to some of these events, and that's it. Okay, that's cool, Elle. So Caitlin Clark got all the records, although you sort of made mention to it. I think Juju Watkins is going to beat the women's D1 scoring record in 4 years. The way you look at it, Caitlin Clark passed Kelsey Plum, who got the record in 2017, and Kelsey Plum got it from Brittany Griner, who got it in 2013. So in the women's game, it gets passed off like every 4 or 5 years, generally speaking, recently, and Juju Watkins is on that pace. However, do you think we are ever going to see somebody get to 40,000 points in the NBA like LeBron did the other night?
Oof.
He says that's a record that he thinks somebody's going to get to. Not a shot.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he certainly in a much more offensive heavy. I think that there's people that didn't think that anybody would ever break Kareem's record. And then we saw
Correct.
LeBron end up doing that, right? So I definitely don't want to say never. It just feels like nobody in history has ever been this consistently good for
For
this
this
long.
long.
I don't know anyone that's going to be able to tickle 40 still averaging 25 points a game. Like he's just that's the thing is that like I think that like obviously we've got volume scorers and people that can score and all that, but to be able to do it for 20 plus years
Mm-hmm.
at that level, I don't see I don't see how anyone's going to be able to do that. But again, my father-in-law, who's in his 70s, would tell you no one will ever break Kareem's record. So who, certainly who knows? But what an absolute accomplishment. I wonder though, like, do you get to a point? It's funny. I think AD kind of said what everybody was thinking that are Lakers fans. Like, every
Like,
time this
damn,
dude breaks
bro.
a record, we end up losing. I don't want him to
Yeah, no
break any
doubt.
more records.
He's like, let's not bring it up when he gets to 41,000. Let's not bring it up when he gets to 42,000. And anybody sitting, listen, watching at home, thinking like, yeah, people are going to get to 40,000. Just take a wild guess to those listeners, and I'll let you sit on it for a second here, who the next closest active player is to LeBron James. I'll give you a couple seconds. Okay, whoever you were thinking, you weren't thinking. Well, it is Kevin Durant, but he has not even eclipsed 29,000 career points.
Mm.
Kevin Durant, not even at 30. All right, the next closest after Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, who is
Yep.
25th on the all-time scoring list. So I know we watch these guys play every night, and scoring's been at an all-time high in the NBA for the better part of the last decade. Yet still, these dudes aren't even at 30,000 points yet, and they are well on the back nine of their career. Like, could a guy like a Nikola Jokic eventually get there the way he's putting up numbers, or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander just in his 5th season in the league? Yes, but nobody is going to get to 40,000 points in our lifetime. It's a bit morbid to say, and that's how I welcomed SportsCenter the other day, the morning after it happened, which was yesterday. I said, hey, this is a record that we never thought was going to happen, and it's a record that's going to outlive every single person watching this morning.
I mean, I would not disagree. I think you look at some of the numbers too, like it took him the exact amount of games to go from 10,000 that it took for him to go from 30 to 40,000. That's what I mean. The consistency,
Mm-hmm.
bruh, he was a kid and it took him 368 games to get 10,000 points. And then as like an old man, it took him 10,000. It took him 368 games to hit that other 10,000. Like, it's just, again, I don't, and I also don't think that anybody is going to be as motivated to
Correct.
stay in the league as LeBron is too. I mean, if you're a guy that's even tickling the things and the accomplishments and accolades that LeBron's had for the most part, you're probably right out of the sunset at some point. Like, you're not trying to revive the Lakers anymore. You're going, I've done it all. Like, let me go. But of course, we all know that LeBron's trying to hang on for Bronny. He's trying to hang on for his son. And I do want to ask you before we get to some of these wild records, because there's lots of like really wacky, unbreakable records, we assume. Some weird ones that I want to run through. But I do want to talk to you about this Bronny sitch. I mean, have you seen sort of the latest and what Rich Paul said about Bronny navigating the 2024 NBA draft?
Yeah, trying to get traction from teams after our initial forecast was like he's not a draftable asset this
Yeah.
season.
And listen, the kid had to miss many months after having a cardiac episode. He was cleared to play. I think he's averaging just over 5 points per game in like 20 minutes at USC. But I actually don't mind at all what Rich Paul said, which is essentially we're not worried about how high he gets drafted. We're not worried about that, right? And like for a lot of prospects, of course you want to be a lotto pick. The money is better. Certainly all of that. The hype is better.
Yeah, we know
But
Bronny needs both of those.
yeah, he doesn't need either one of those things. And I don't think it's wrong for Rich to say, hey, we're not worried about whether he's going to be a lotto pick. We already know that he's not. For us, it's much more about fit. He doesn't even have to be drafted. Like, what's the best team so that he can go on and he can grow? And of course, if organically it just so happens that the Lakers are
Mm-hmm.
that team, awesome. Wouldn't it be great? LeBron would love to play with his son, but that they're just much more concerned about him trying to have a path to a career that doesn't involve having to be a lotto pick. He doesn't need any or either of those things. I think it's a good approach, particularly because the 2025 draft class next year is supposed to be loaded. So I think it's sort of hedging your bets a little bit and going, yes, we could wait another year at USC, see if the numbers get better. Obviously, he's going to have more time on the court. He's going to have been in basketball longer. You just grow and mature the longer that you play. Do we do that, or do we just take a flyer on this year and say, maybe he won't be drafted, but he can sign with the team. He can grow. Does he go to the G League? Does he, like, what does he do to still have a path towards ultimately having a great career that doesn't involve him necessarily having to be a splashy basketball pick. And I do think that on the men's side, where it's regarded on the women's side to stay in college 3, 4, 5 years, you got that fifth year now with COVID. On the men's side, it's always an indictment on who you are if you have to last longer than 2 years, right? It's always like, ugh, this guy's like a 4 year starter. That's horrific, you know? And I don't think that approach is bad.
Well, that I think I understand how you see it that way, but the way I see it is this was a required departure. This to me is like very much dog with its tail between its legs and being like, no, 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 no. We've been humble from the start because they understand that it's not this whole like passing of the torch,
Sure.
LeBron to Bronny, 1 year, one and done, all of a sudden lottery pick. Like they understand that that's not happening. So now it's like, no, 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 no. You're putting way too much pressure on him. He doesn't need this stuff. We're going to go to a place that feels like a better basketball fit. But we have all the receipts, Elle, from the entire James camp being like, this dude could play right now. He's the chosen one, all of this stuff. And then it's a little bit of backpedaling after realizing and understanding. And look, this isn't me like ripping the kid, but it's just me understanding that it's not now and it's not this year. And
Yeah.
That's a heady agent move.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yes, he's being a good agent for sure. I mean, I always feel for these kids. Like I remember when Marcus Jordan was at UCF, it was like,
oh
you
my
don't,
God,
yeah, right.
yeah,
It's like you don't have to, you know, I hope that you don't feel the pressure to do it. I mean, I do believe that Bronny actually really loves basketball a lot more than Marcus did. And I also believe Bronny has a lot more talent. It's just that exactly. It's the shadow. It's the person whose name he shares
yeah.
that was a big famous star from the time he was 13 and 14 years old, and not because of his dad, but because purely of his talent and him being the chosen one and all those things that we have associated with great success, or at least an indicator of great success in the league. They're a lotto pick. They're a one and done. They take the nation by storm. Like that hasn't happened for Bronny. And again, heart condition as well, right? And like he'll actually even have to go in front of a board because of his heart condition to prove
Mm-hmm.
that he's fit to play in the NBA. Obviously, insurance is a thing and all of that. But I do think that yes, life will humble you if you don't humble yourself. And so I think them saying like, I don't know that it's tail between the legs so much as it's a pivot. It's recognizing where you are and pivoting and saying, all right, there's a million different ways to skin a cat. I always hate that saying, even though I say it all the time, because I don't know that there's a million ways to skin a cat, and also
Mm-mm.
who skins cats, but whatever.
Well, I could tell you, but
Yeah.
I think it's been banned. I'm pretty sure it's been banned. But anyway,
I hope.
yeah,
But I think that's what it is. I think it's like, okay, what's our best approach, you know? And I like I'm not gonna lie, there's some whispers about Arch Manning, you know, as our
sure.
fantastic producer drops in the chat about sort of being this nepo baby. And I think Arch Manning, name alone, and also talent, got all this NIL money. He's at Texas. I remember saying to someone, I won't out them, but I remember saying to someone in the college football space recently, I was like, I don't know why Quinn Ewers would come back. Like, why would Quinn Ewers come back when Quinn Ewers is like, they're going to try to push him out for Arch Manning? And the person's like, why do you think that? I'm like, it's Arch Manning, dude. Like, Arch Manning's not going to sit for 2 years. Arch Manning's going to want to like get in there and play. They're paying him all this money. There's all this fanfare. He always has the biggest crowds. They call for Arch's name when Quinn starts messing up. Like, they want, and someone looked at me and said, what if Arch Manning's not that good? And I was like, well, that can't be. I mean, he's a art. And they were like, no, what if, just what if he got in the building and they realized, oh, this is a project. This is not a, you're just
Mm-hmm.
going to do your pay your due and sit for 1 year. This is a, we need Quinn to come back because you aren't ready. And I was like, I guess I never thought of it that way. I guess I sort of associated the hype, sort of like we did with Bronny, with the idea that like the pedigree that like, oh, he's just going to step in and he's going to, and they really did sort of raise the level of like, it might be that he's just not ready. And it might be that despite the name and the money and the fanfare and all of that, he is a guy that's going to have to come on a little later in life. Maybe he's a Joe Burrow, right? Like maybe he's a guy that's going to have to kind of take us by storm his junior and senior years. Um, yeah, so we'll certainly see. I mean, speaking of Nepo babies,
That's crazy though. So Peyton Manning said that to you, huh? Ahead of a Peyton's Places taping. Then no, that's crazy because like that's his nephew. So I mean, that's crazy.
horrible. Those are
Oh,
getting in
I
trouble,
wasn't supposed to
Omaha.
say his name. Oh, that's my bad. That's my bad.
Could you imagine?
Yo,
It's just not
he's
that good.
like, nephew's not even that good, dude. Like, for sure. I'm actually kind of bummed that we shared the last name. All
I know.
right. What do we got? Nepo
I was gonna say,
babies?
speaking of nepo babies, I loved the moment at the combine with Brendan Rice, son of Jerry Rice,
Oh,
when
gosh.
Caleb Williams asked him, "How did it feel to be Jerry Rice's son?" And he immediately pivoted to, "Man, it feels even better to be a teammate of Caleb Williams." I think Gary, he watched our show last week where we gave some advice on how they could handle these questions,
That's right.
and I think he nailed it.
He did because Caleb Williams is going to hold some power with whatever franchise he goes to. All right, whether it's personnel decisions or otherwise, because it sounds like he's coming in there with a contingent, all right, of of representation, whether that's welcomed or not. So he's going to be able to sort of dictate or at least have some influence on who he is throwing passes to. So Mr. Rice already saying he's open in
100%.
other ways, man. Throw me the damn ball. Listen, receivers know how to get the rock, bro, whether it's on the
100%.
field or off the field.
Ask T.O.
But
crying. That's
also
my
we're
quarterback.
we're so old. Like we are.
Good,
Jerry
bruh. Jerry
Rice's
Rice's
son is in
kid
the
is in
league.
the NFL.
Jerry Rice was my favorite player growing up. So
Yeah.
like now to see him and like Joe Montana doing Skechers commercials, I'm like, damn, I'm not too far removed from that.
Wearing a Popeyes chicken helmet. I'm like,
Yo,
why,
that's
Jerry? No.
crazy. Like they're in the commercials that are making fun of like old washed superstars.
Yes.
Him, Dan Marino, Emmett Smith, Gronk is in those commercials now. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. We are moving entirely too fast.
We're moving too fast.
Yeah, hell no.
Feels like this podcast moved really fast. So before we wrap up, because it's been a podcast where we've talked so much about records, Gary, I thought we
Correct.
could share some wild records that seem unbreakable. I want you to tell me if there's any of these that you would actually attempt. Not that you would break the record, there's zero
Sure.
chance, but which of these would you actually attempt? So the longest time with live ferrets in your pants is 5 hours and 30 minutes.
Well, I don't
Bro,
know.
have you ever seen a ferret? They stink, dude. Our family friends had
Wait, hold
ferrets.
on, hold on, hold on. What a sentence. Have you ever seen a ferret? They stink.
Bro, they're so stank. We had a family friend that
Neither
had
or.
ferrets, Gary,
For
and
what?
like that you'd walk. They had like multiple ferrets, and they're so scary too because these people just let their ferrets go wild. So you just be standing there, and this little like stinky rat would run across your foot, but they smell you. I mean, there's nothing you could like fresh out of the bath. They just smell like piss. They're gross.
Were they making coats? What were they
No,
doing with and were
they
they
let them
letting them
mink.
just
No.
they were just letting them run well, I don't know. Maybe if you treat it a certain way, you can't really tell.
Yeah, they would just let the ferrets like run around and like sometimes they'd be like, we haven't seen Juliet in a few days. I'm like, yeah, because you let a rat burrow into your house. Who knows where it is at this point?
Would you allow a ferret in your pantaloons?
God no. I told
Yeah.
you they
They
smell.
stink. They stink. Okay.
What about I feel like me and you could both attempt this because we're both athletes. The longest mobile phone throw is 362.3 feet. I could do that.
N no, you couldn't.
Yeah, I think
Elle,
so.
that's clearing the green monster.
Yeah.
That's from home plate. You could
Oh,
clear the green monster.
I might could.
Not a shot. I mean, if the
I
green
want to
monster's
try
only
it now. Am I Uncle Ricoing this? I'm like, how much you
yeah.
want to bet I could throw a football over the mountains? I
Yo,
think I could, Gary. I got a cannon, bruh. I don't think you understand because you've never seen me on a baseball field.
no, I
I
believe
got a
it.
cannon,
I
son.
believe it. It depends. You're not doing it with an iPhone. They're too light. You need the Nokia brick. You need the 52.
Oh,
I think it's the 5280. Remember the one with the snake, the OG phone. That mug
yeah.
was heavy. You need something.
Like the Zach Morris phone with the antenna.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Or I'm thinking you might be able to do it kind of like skipping rocks on a lake with a Motorola Razor because you can take it and sling it. You know what I'm saying? Sort of like, El, do you know how far 362 feet is? That is
Clearly not.
dead center home run in a major league ballpark. Like, not a shot we're doing that, but I'll try. But I'll
All
try.
right. Yeah. Most Big Macs consumed in a lifetime, 26,000.
I mean, I feel like if you're putting down Big Macs at that clip, that's a shortened lifetime. So that
Yeah.
probably makes it even more impressive. And who's keeping count? How many lifetime or how many Big Macs would you actually put a number on that you've downed in your lifetime?
In my whole
In your
life,
whole life?
I don't really eat red meat, so I could probably say 10.
Okay. And
Maybe
I would 10x that. I've probably had in my whole life 50. Okay, so
50 Big
that's
Macs.
only 5x. So to do it 26,000, nah, not a shot.
No shot. Okay.
Especially with fast food prices being the way they are these days.
Oh yeah.
You can't. I went to Wendy's the other day, got a meal, just a standard meal. I didn't upsize it or anything. It was $17.
Yeah.
That's
It's insane.
insane.
And Wendy's is saying they're going to do flex pricing too. So
Yeah,
like
that's crazy.
that's
It was Wendy's.
insane,
It
bruh.
was Wendy's. It was
That's insane.
nuts. Nah,
All
nah.
right. This would be very difficult as someone that was a swimmer. The farthest swim with handcuffs, 2.6 miles.
Well, you see, the detail that we're not including is that was actually a scheduled swim of 3 miles, but because that Joker was in handcuffs, hey, 2.6 about as far as they could get. You know what I'm saying? They're like, hey, you could leave Alcatraz. Land
I
is
was
about,
literally about to say, Gary,
I'm
that feels like
saying,
someone breaking out of
be like,
Alcatraz and then getting right there.
land is about 2.8 away. Good luck. You know
What
what
you
I'm
got?
saying? You know what I'm saying? Not a shot. I could barely swim regular. I could barely swim unencumbered. You know what I'm
Correct.
saying? I'm not
Yeah.
doing that with any sort of hindrance upon me. Not a shot.
And lastly, the most beers allegedly consumed in one flight across the US. And of course, this belongs to allegedly Wade Boggs, 107 beers. That doesn't seem
Nah,
possible.
no, I could believe that. You've seen the debauchery that goes on these chartered flights. I remember we flew from it was Boston. It was a West Coast swing. So first of all, that's like a 6 hour flight. And if you think about it, these dudes are in the back of the plane acting a fool. There are no rules. You can't TSA can't tell me nothing. I once saw Brandon Workman put down 20 Chick-fil-A sandwiches on a dare from Boston to I think it was Baltimore. It was a very short flight.
Shut
And
up.
he got dared because you know how we'd pull up and the catering would be on the
Oh,
plane.
yeah.
He went and got 20 Chick-fil-A sandwiches and he was challenged to eat them before they got to Baltimore. And
Bro, that's like an hour flight.
I know, I think he put down like double digits for sure. Because I saw him at the hotel and I was like, dude, did you really eat 20 Chick-fil-A sandwiches? He's like, I didn't even, I got about halfway. So
Even that
yes,
is impressive.
I could believe Wade Boggs put down 107 bears.
There's zero. So have you ever tried to attempt Power Hour with beer?
No, I don't even know
Oh
what that
my
is.
God. Okay. Wow. So Power Hour is, and it seems on the surface so easy. Power Hour is you take one shot of beer, just a shot of beer, like a little shot, right? In a
Two
shot
two
glass,
ounces, little 2 ounces.
little 2 ounces every minute for 1 hour. Okay. On the surface, you're like, that's not that hard, right? Like it's a shot of beer. Like it's this much. It's not a beer. It's one shot of beer, 1 minute for a whole hour. I attempted this many years ago with some friends at a house. We're just gonna like post up at this house. We're gonna try Power Hour because we think we can do it. And the first few minutes, you're like, this is easy. Like it's just a shot of beer. It's like no biggie, whatevs. And then you get to like the 12th, 13th minute, and you're like, I feel full. And then by the
Because
16th
it's too
minute,
much air.
17th minute, you're like, I feel I feel yucky. I made it 30 minutes and was on the verge of puking, hammer timed. This is like half a beer, hammer timed. Like none of us made it past the 30-minute mark. And like
Really?
that was, I'm telling you, Gary,
Because
you
according to
think
my Asian math, every 2 ounces every minute for an hour only equates to 2.5 standard beers.
that's what I'm saying. You think in your
What?
mind, we did all of this stupid drunk math ourselves ahead of time, Gary. So I was so confident going in. I was like, I can do this. I can do this. You would be shocked at how sick and yucky and drunk you are by 30 minutes in. Anyone listening that's ever attempted Power Hour, I think can attest. I don't know a single person that's made it to 60 awake. I
I
don't
would
know a
like,
single one.
will they let us do this on the show?
Absolutely not.
What if we do it remotely? So
Yeah,
there's
if we
no
did it
alcohol.
remotely, I think it could work because we could say we're at the comfort of our home. We're not on work property. Certainly, they won't let us just bring beers and start pounding them
This is
at work.
not, this is not, I'm not oh, I can do that challenge, but this sounds like a challenge that I have to live through to
Can we? Oh
actually,
my God. I just came up with an idea. We shoot the
hey,
podcast
I'm
remotely.
in. I'm in.
Say less. We shoot the podcast remotely. You take the shot the whole time. We see if you can successfully get through the podcast as you are doing your Power Hour. I'm gonna tell you, you're not,
No way.
especially I know
Next
you.
Monday,
You
let's
are
do
the
it.
weakest drinker, Gary.
I
You
am.
are
I
Mr.
am.
Malibu and pineapple. I don't think you'll make it 15 minutes. I don't think you understand how hard it is to do power hour. I think you're gonna be wasty. So let's pick a day when you have literally nothing else to do because you will be night night. And let's do it. Let's
I'm
put this.
doing it.
This
I'm
is a
down.
challenge we can take.
Are there any rules as it relates to every minute? So can I do like the first shot, the first second, the next minute comes and I can do the next shot at 1 minute 59 seconds? Do you know what I'm
No,
saying?
it's like no, it's like every minute on the minute. So like as soon as the minute
So
turns,
so
you take a
every
shot.
60, so every
Every
60
60
seconds.
seconds, you're taking a shot.
I want to try this.
Okay.
I want to try it.
I want to watch you try.
All right, I'm down.
Oh my God. Yay. What a tease. So next Monday, we will watch Gary throw up live from his home.
Yes.
Tell your lovely girlfriend, Abby,
This
that
is awesome.
she's going to have to take care of everything for the rest of the day. I'm just
Yeah,
telling
well,
you,
she's
you're
gonna
not
be
going to
at
be able
work,
to do it.
so this is great.
You're
This
not
is
going to be
great.
able to do it. Homie's not getting walks. Like nothing's happening. I'm really interested to see how far you make it. I know you won't make it the hour, but I'm interested to see if you could beat my 30-minute threshold. So we'll see.
That's a tease. We'll see you Thursday.
All right, Thursday.